What is going on, guys? BZK here. Today I'm very excited to bring you guys my pre and post Taken King DLC Titan Striker build, nicknamed the Shell Shocker. Now, why do I say pre and post Taken King DLC build? Well, the reason why is because of this little number right here, the Nekor Chasm. As is, I know you're all very, very disappointed with the Nekor Chasm. It was a grind, to say the least, to get this thing, and it was very, very disappointing. But do not fret, because the Nekor Chasm specifically is getting a huge buff, and I mean huge. If you guys haven't seen my video, I'll link it down in the description and throw it up on screen right now for you guys to check out. But basically, not only are the auto rifle class getting its own buff, but the Nekor Chasm and the Hardlight are getting their own specific buffs, and the Nekor Chasm is basically ridiculously good with this buff coming out. I'm not exactly sure when, like specifically, the buff will happen, but I do know that the Necro Chasm will be very good. I highly recommend you guys check it out. But what we'll be doing today is going over a build specifically designed for flat out aggression, in your face, up close and personal aggression. So let's get right into it, starting with the grenade. First and foremost, our grenade will be the flashbang grenade. The reason why we want the flashbang and not pulse or lightning is because the flashbang grenade will give us the ability to blind enemies before we engage them. This class will be heavily built around aggression, so if we can blind them for like 7 or 8 seconds before we engage them, that gives us a huge advantage, specifically for those stinky majors. Now, if we can blind them, we can get extra damage on them before they start attacking us, and if we get a killing blow with Amplify for our Storm Fist on one of those majors, we get like 30% of our super back. I'll get to that later. But Flashbang is very, very helpful in PvE for blinding a huge group of enemies because its blast radius is very generous. Moving on to the jump, we have increased control. We want increased control because we move farther faster. Now, if we have increased height, I mean, it's increased height's, useful and all, but if we're aggressive with increased height, that just makes us a sitting duck in the air. It makes us very easy to hit from the enemy, like especially like those Vex Hobgoblins, they can just snipe you right out of the air. So we want to avoid increased height for that reason. For catapults, I don't find it useful at all. I don't see a difference between the regular jump and catapult, or between increased control and catapult. I just flat out don't see a difference. I mean, if you guys use catapult and actually like it, by all means, if it means that you're faster in the air, by all means use it. But otherwise, just stick with increased control. It's the most convenient jump to use, and I think it's most comfortable for everybody. Moving on to the Fist of Havoc, we have Aftermath. Leaves a damage dealing field in its way. Now, this can be used really well for, like, if you know enemies are coming out of a door, for example, you can use your Fist of Havoc, kill a group of them, and wait for the enemies to come through the door, and they should die in its wake, giving you more orbs for your fire team. Otherwise, if you're in a sticky situation, you can use your Fist of Havoc, and it can give you kind of like a safety area, if you will, because the enemies aren't going to run into your Aftermath. If they do, they'll just die. So it can kind of save you in that regard. So that's why we want Aftermath. Death from Above, I mean, Death from Above is so fun to use, but it's not really, I don't want to say logical, but it's definitely something to use if you want to have fun. Death from Above is so fun to use. Shockwave, there's a reason why we're not using Shockwave for these two perks right here. I'll get to those later. But Shockwave, it's helpful, but we don't need it for this. So we're going to stick with Aftermath. For our Stormfist, we want Amplify or Discharge. Now, the reason why I have Amplify is because my intellect is like really low. It's 24%, so it's really low. I need all the help I can get to getting my Stormfist, or yeah, my Fist of Havoc back faster, and that's what Amplify does. Kills with the Stormfist significantly reduce the cooldown of our Fist of Havoc, and like I said before, if you get a killing blow with your Stormfist with Amplify on a major of any sort, you get like 25-30% of your super back, which is absolutely crazy. Not only that, Amplify stacks really well with our exotic gauntlets, which I'll get to in a sec. But if your intellect is above, I'd say 70% or so, I would go with Discharge. Hits with Stormfist deal area of effect damage around the target, and This is primarily the one perk I would go for over, like, this would be like our first priority is discharge. We want our intellect to be really high so we can use discharge. This just makes us very, very lethal up close and personal, like this build is designed for. Otherwise, stick with Amplify because we want our Storm Fist back, or our Fist of Havoc back, excuse me, our super back as much as we possibly can. Moving on to the codex, we have the Titan Codex 2, focus on speed and toughness, and Titan Codex 4, focus on all attributes. Personally, these two are up in the air. It just is based off of how you play. I mean, even like something like that would do well for this class. It really, really just depends on your playstyle. If you wanted to go like this, max out your armor almost with maxed out agility for a Titan, this is just screaming reckless aggression. Like if you wanted to use this, by all means. It's simply up to your personal preference. Me personally, I prefer to have as much armor as humanly possible so I can take as many hits as possible, which stacks very nicely with these next two perks, which are a must. Headstrong. Sprinting increases the leap distance of your Fist of Havoc, and Unstoppable. You are harder to kill while using Fist of Havoc. So say you have your Fist of Havoc up and you're ready to use it. You run towards a group of enemies and you're taking damage. Headstrong allows us to reach our target faster. Not only that, Unstoppable allows us to be harder to kill while we're using Fist of Havoc. Now, I guess you really could use Juggernaut if you're sprinting towards enemy. It stacks really, really nicely with Headstrong, so either Unstoppable or Juggernaut works in that regard if you really wanted to, but me personally, I prefer harder to kill while using Fist of Havoc, Unstoppable, because if we're not using Headstrong, and we're in a sticky situation where we are about to die. We have our Storm... Holy crap, I keep messing this up. We have our Fist of Havoc, excuse me. We can then kill all the enemies around us, hopefully. And if we don't, then we have Aftermath to, as a safety net. But, I mean, again, you could really go for Juggernaut and Headstrong, or Headstrong and Unstoppable. Me, personally, I prefer Unstoppable. Now, moving on to the interesting part, the exotics. The exotic armor we'll be using are the ACD0 feedback fences. Now the reason why is because of two perks right here. Brawler's Charge, replenish super energy when you kill an enemy with a melee, and Wrath Conductors. Taking damage from a melee attack deals damage in an area around you. I don't know about you guys, but these two perks scream aggression to me. Like, we can be up close and personal in their face, just meleeing the dog shit out of them, getting our super back fast, and if we get hits from their melee, they're essentially hitting themselves. Just think of it that way. If they hit us at all with their melee, they will be dealing damage to themselves, basically giving us a huge advantage. And then, of course, we have Rainbow's increased melee attack speed. It's always a helpful thing. But with the AC&D feedback fence and Amplify, these two stack really, really well with each other. Specifically, like I said before, if you get a killing blow on a major with your Storm Fist with Amplify on, stacked with these feedback fence gauntlets, with that more super energy for melee kills, you get so much super energy back. It's crazy. So that's why we want the feedback fence gauntlets. Now for the interesting part, the Necro Chasm. If you guys haven't seen my video, again, I'll link it down in the description. I'll throw it up on screen right now for you guys. But basically, it's going to be really, really good. The specific buffs are getting... I'm not going to get too much into detail, but it's going to affect the Cursebringer perk, the magazine size, and the stability. Now, the magazine size is increasing. It's already at 42. So any auto rifle with 42 rounds that's like unheard of. That's ridiculous. I mean, the Soros has 33, and the Soros was... You guys all remember the Soros before the auto rifles got nerfed. The Soros was the go-to gun, and it only had 33 shots. The Nekor Chasm has 42, and I promise you, this will be the go-to assault rifle for PvE. It'll be so good, specifically for the buff that they're bringing to this perk right here, Cursebringer. But basically, I personally prefer this gun as is. Like, I'm pretty decent with it. My shot, I would like to say, is accurate enough to where I can trigger this perk a lot, enough for it to be effective, and it has Cascade built into it. Melee kills increase reload speed for this weapon for a short time. We'll be using our Storm Fist melee a lot, so it only adds to the synergy for this whole build. But I highly recommend you guys check out that video because it will explain everything about the Nekor Chasm being buffed. It'll be so good, I promise you guys. But guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something useful. This build can be really useful if you just want to be, you know, just reckless as hell and don't really care about, living or dying. I mean, obviously you want to stay alive, but this is definitely for the aggressive player to use. But guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please drop a like, and as always, YouTube, motherfucking peace.